Do Arabs hate the West? Arabs do not hate Westerners, not the ordinary people, but they do hate Western politicians who, with the pretext of bringing them democracy, interfere in the internal affairs of their country. Sometimes very dangerously, like the tourist who dares cross the streets of Cairo, completely unaware of the unwritten codes of conduct between drivers and pedestrians. This code is exactly what Western politicians are missing as they try to fix the region. Thus, the list of injustices that the West has done to the region builds up into a long rant, namely the fragmentation of Arab countries. The result of the combination of all grievances caused by the West may be the creation of a climate that is receptive to radicalism, very dangerous for all of us. It's suicidal, isn't it? Terrified, Monica, my colleague from London, clung to my arm. She did not smile but nodded her head without even looking at me. We were crossing the bustling streets of the noisy and crowded Al Tahrir Square, Maidan Al Tahrir, in downtown Cairo. I was maneuvering our way through the middle of the street, slithering through the slim gaps between fast cars and other pedestrians, trying to cut a way through, trying to get to the other side of the road, slithering through the slim gaps between fast cars and other pedestrians. Monica said it was almost impossible for her to figure out how to cross the square safely without me. I was arrogantly flattered. But the truth is things in Cairo are different from what she is used to in London. There are no pedestrian crossings, no traffic lights, no slowdown by drivers to let her set foot on the street. To cross streets in Cairo and many other Arab cities safely, there is a whole code of unwritten rules between drivers and pedestrians, and even indifferent policemen. Safely, there is a whole code of unwritten rules between drivers and pedestrians, and even indifferent policemen. Leaning forward or backward, moving or stopping, heading out fast or slowing down, all at the right time. If you don't know the code, don't cross the road, or you risk your life and other lives. A code is exactly what Americans and British soldiers are missing as they are facing death every day. Road crossing a muddy, uncharted terrain. With no road code, everybody dies. But the frightening reality is that the West believes in its miraculous capacity for quick fixing. A messy situation such as the Iraqi one, which they have actively contributed to creating over decades, could be fixed through a holiday-like excursion. Under this agenda of fixing Iraq and bringing democracy and freedom to its people, everybody is disgusted by the many other added interests. Monica was wise enough not to suggest suddenly starting to erect traffic lights or imposing pedestrian crossings overnight at Al Tahrir Square, believing that she, the foreigner, can fix it. We don't want you, Brits and Americans, to surge into our country to fix it. This is the message that almost everyone here in Cairo gives me. This is the message that almost everyone here in Cairo gives me. Tells me that she loves seeing Western people cheering her when she performs at Al Haram Street nightclub. But she hates it when they killed my brothers and sisters in Palestine and Iraq, saying that they are doing good things to them. In Egypt, where I traveled to investigate why do Arabs hate the West and collect my findings for a British TV documentary, the road crossing code analogy hit me on the very first day. It stayed with me over the 10 days that I spent there. It stayed with me over the 10 days that I spent there. Drivers, belly dancers, intellectuals, shoppers, politicians, academics, artists, pop stars and many others. It stayed with me over the 10 days that I spent there. And discussed the Iraq War and the question of Palestine over smoking shisha, hubbly-bubbly, with completely apolitical Muslims and Christians. Everyone I interviewed responded with an almost standard line. We don't hate the West or Western people, we hate Western politicians. More sophisticated people would even avoid the word hate altogether. The first reply that I got to my question, why do Arabs hate the West, almost invariably was a vehement denial. Everyone I interviewed responded with an almost standard line. We don't hate the West or Western people, we hate Western politicians. More sophisticated people would even avoid the word hate altogether. People were very anxious to draw a clear distinction between bad Westerners, Bush and Blair and their circles, and ordinary Westerners. People were very anxious to draw a clear distinction between bad Westerners, Bush and Blair and their circles, and ordinary Westerners. So why should not ordinary people share the blame too? They replied that these people are fooled by their own politicians and guilty more of ignorance than of crimes. The criminals are the guys at the top. Monica commented that she wished that we in Britain had the same sanity and ability to distinguish between good Arabs and bad ones, too. Without a doubt, Western politicians are fervently resented by Arabs. After objecting to and qualifying the wording of my initial question, the hate just starts pouring from almost everyone. And the list of injustices that the West has done to the region builds up into a long rant. Dr. Fadil, a prominent economist at Cairo University, talks about the continuous plundering of the wealth of the region. Ahmad, the young owner of a perfume shop in Qasr El Nil Street, passionately condemns the continuous Western support of Israel against Palestinian rights and the hypocrisy of the West in focusing, for example, on Iran's nuclear power and turning a blind eye to Israel's. Passionately condemns the continuous Western support of Israel against Palestinian rights and the hypocrisy of the West in focusing. Not soldiers, not like Bush and Blair. Rock star Mohammed Munir, denounced by many conservatives for his songs, complains about the Western media, especially movies, stereotyping Arabs as criminals and terrorists. Complains about the Western media, especially movies, stereotyping Arabs as criminals and terrorists. The sweet fundamentalist, for his good looks, shrewd mind and politeness, points at how Western governments swallow all their talk about human rights and democracy when it comes to so-called friendly regimes, the ones from which they can get oil. Historians as well as ordinary Arabs hold the West responsible for the past fragmentation of the region and the foreseeable fragmentation of Iraq too. And everybody ridicules Bush and Blair's claims that they are bringing democracy and freedom to Iraq, and then to the region as a whole. Ahmad Fuad Nam, the most popular poet in Egypt, who spent 17 years in jail, looks me in the eye and sharply asks you think of it. If you are the master, the colonial power in the West, and you have proxy rulers in the region who are sincerely serving your interests, would you change them because they are dictators and do nasty things to their own people? You'd say fuck their people. The concluding message is the most dangerous one. As put forward by Dr. Hiba Izzat, a remarkably insightful intellectual whose hijab does not prevent her from being the Middle East anchor of a London School of Economics project on global civil society. As put forward by Dr. Hiba Izzat, a remarkably insightful intellectual whose hijab does caused by the West is the creation of a climate that is receptive to fanaticism and all sorts of radicalism. Not prevent her from being the Middle East anchor of a London School of Economics project on global civil society, but also of decades-long Western foreign policies. I flew back to London convinced more than ever that the war in Iraq has increased terrorism in the region and beyond. The price will be paid by Arabs and Westerners alike. When I asked my friend Hashim, a controversial publisher who defies both the government and the conservatives in Egypt by targeting the three taboos of politics, sex, and religion, "What is your message to the West?" he said, "Get off our backs, please, before it's too late. Get your troops out of the region and leave. We hate to see you killing us and killing yourselves in our streets under the claim of fixing us." I'm worried, he added, that feelings against Western politicians may have started moving in the direction against Western people themselves.